O-O-K, L-Y-N, let me say it again. B-O-O-K, L-Y-N, and that spell happiness in there. Some walk along the street, feel the pavement beneath your feet. Fresh at the dawn, I ain't putting you on. There are some fine people to meet.
This is Bruce Friedman for That's Brooklyn, and today we are in Park Slope, and we have a gentleman whose name is Richard Cadlub, and he has an organization which is called A Tour Grows in Brooklyn. Now, we're standing in front of a really magnificent building. Tell us about it.
This is a Romanesque revival style house built in 1888 by C.P.H. Gilbert. C.P.H. Gilbert built this house for Thomas Adams Jr. and his son as a double home. Behind us is one entrance, and there's another entrance on 8th Avenue. Thomas Adams Jr. was the inventor of Chiclets chewing gum, Wrigley's, and the vending machines that dispense the gum. That's how he made his fortune.
If I remember, in the subways, they had these vending machines, and you put in a penny, and you could get a chiclet gum, right?
Yes, that's how it was.
Okay.
Yes. This is one of the earliest known homes to ever have an elevator in 1888. And when the mansion was broken up into apartments, the elevator shaft was removed, and they put bedrooms where the elevator shaft was. Right. And the story goes that the servants were trapped in the elevator, and they were found dead when the family went on summer vacation out into the Hamptons. And new tenants, unbeknownst to the story, claim in the evening to hear Irish accented voices crying out for food, water, Mother Mary, save us.
But they were given the shaft.
Yes, the elevator shaft. Well, Litchfield owned the whole neighborhood from the Gowanus Canal to about Flatbush Avenue, Prospect Park, including the entire park, up to 9th Street, and again down to the Gowanus Canal. Edwin Clark Litchfield owned all this property. And he had his Italian-style villa built in 1857 by A.J. Davis, world-renowned architect A.J. Davis, in 1857. 3 short years later, preliminary park plans were drawn up, which included all the land surrounding the villa and the villa. So Mr. Litchfield went to court versus the city of Brooklyn, and after an 8-year court battle in 1868, he was forced to surrender the villa to the city of Brooklyn and only accept compensation, which at the time, 1868, was $200,000. Mm-hmm. He requested to live in the villa for $2,500 a year, which the city of Brooklyn granted him. Uh-huh. He lived in the villa for 12 years up until 1880 when his wife passed away. He then moved to upstate New York, and him and his wife now are both buried at Brooklyn's Greenwood Cemetery, and they're put in the ground facing opposite the villa.
But building Prospect Park was the destination that one Litchfield felt would be a reason for people to want to buy the homes that he was building here in Park Slope. Is that true?
Yes, he owned, like I said, he owned all of the property, so Litchfield's construction offices are located on 3rd Avenue and 3rd Street. So that's why 3rd Street is the widest block in Park Slope. It's about twice as wide as any other street, because Mr. Litchfield would take his horse-drawn carriage from his villa inside the park at Prospect Park West and 5th Street down to 3rd Avenue and 3rd Street. This area was known as Brooklyn's Gold Coast in the 1890s. This area had the highest earning per capita in all of the United States. And you'll see as we walk along 8th Avenue, it's dotted with all mansions. If you don't see any mansions, they were torn down so they can build Manhattan-style high-rise buildings with doormen. But behind us, we have 2 twin homes, across the street, shall I say, which were built in 1900 by Thomas Bennett. And they were built for a gentleman named Louis Bonner and his son in 1900 in Beaux-Arts-style architecture. The one on the left is still a single-family home, and right now it's for rent, the entire building, for $20,000 a month. And the movie The Age of the Innocents was filmed in the lobby of that building, and the scene where they're coming down the steps. Next door, again, you have the twin home, which has been divided into 5 apartments. There's a beautiful common area inside, which I often go inside with my clients. I know the owner of the mansion, and you have beautiful ionic columns, woodwork around the fireplaces with lion heads carved in, griffins carved into the stairwells as you walk up, wood paneling on the wall, all oak and mahogany wood.
And they were filming the movie Age of Innocence.
Yes.
It was Michelle Pfeiffer and it was Martin Scorsese was the director. And it was a spring night, but in this part of Park Slope, it was snowing. That's right. They had a horse-drawn carriage in front of this limestone, and they had these giant fans that were blowing the snow. But the snow wasn't snow. I found out it was tiny wood chips that were painted white. They were sprayed white, and it looked like snow. We now are standing in front of the Montessori School.
Yes. Built in 1914 by Helmy Hudswell and Uberty. It's Italian Regency Revival style architecture, and the same architects who built this building built the tennis house and the boathouse in the same style of architecture. You have the big half-bowed entranceway, half-Corinthian columns, egg and dart design going along the facade, balustras on the roof, and now this houses the Montessori School. When it was built for a single family, as a single family home, for a family in the street lighting business. And the building has many details. If you look straight over the doorway, you have some mother-of-pearl stained glass. The columns, Corinthian columns, have leaves on top. And this now houses the Montessori School. There's many affluent schools, many schools in the area built for the affluent people that live in the area. On Carroll Street, we have the Berkeley Carroll School. On Prospect Park West, we have the Lower Poly Prep School. The Berkeley Carroll School only goes up to 4th grade, and tuition is $29,000 a year. This is a blue ribbon school. It's the only school in New York City, public or private, to gain that accolade of excellence from the United States Department of Education. In fact, they even have in brownstone formation a ribbon outside, signified that it's a blue ribbon school.
Let's keep walking. You know, one brownstone is not necessarily the same as another. They may look the same, but there are differences.
Behind us, we have some 5-story brownstones. Normally on the side streets, they're 4. These are 5-story brownstones, and the reason they're not 6 is if you have 6 floors, you need an elevator. That's a building code. But what's interesting about the 83, what we're standing in front of, is what common practice when these families had these homes built, they would have the architects carve their faces into the facade. And on this building, we have mom, dad, and 3 children all carved into the facade of the building. If you look on top of the columns and just above that, you see the husband, wife, and the 2 children, and another child in the middle.
Was something like that possibly started in ancient Egypt with the pharaohs and their family?
They did many depictions of themselves. Yes, it's possible.
Yeah. Now, you can certainly carve in brownstone or in limestone. Is one easier to carve than the other, or does it last longer?
Well, brownstone would be easier to carve into, and that's why they don't use brownstone anymore to build homes, because brownstone, at one time, it was more precious than gold, but at this point, it's a soft stone which wears with the weather, and after many years of rain and acid rain and cold wind, snow and ice, these wear down. So that's why they don't use this material anymore for building.
You know, that also holds true if you go cemetery.
What I want to talk about is what destroys the stone for a minute. We have 3 kinds of stone media here in the cemetery that I've found so far. The oldest is the wonderful old sandstones used in the colonial periods. The next is marble, used in the Victorian area, comes in fairly early. And the third is the granite, which holds up extremely well. The others are attacked by all kinds of problems. And I'd like to show you what happens with the marble and the sandstones and why they get destroyed. And I am not talking here about vandalism right now. I'm talking about the weather elements and pollution that the weather brings. This is a perfect example of what happens by nature again. This particular sandstone is the old style marker that you can see from the street with the rabbit ears on the edge, or the Mickey Mouse ears, which is what we call it. And it has peeled off because of the way it was made by the earth, the stone, by layers and layers of material getting pressed hard. And so you get a lot of erosion, bad wind, or acid rain, and it begins to come off in layers. Right next to them are survivors, descendants of the Cortellu family. We have Cortellu Road in Brooklyn, who are among the original settlers. When I said there are 3 people involved in the gravestone, here's an example of a carver that we've identified from the colonial period, Thomas Gold. His work I've seen all over Brooklyn and as far out as New Jersey in graveyards. And he did these particular little bald angels. He was kind of primitive compared to some of the other carvers of the period. But you can see beautiful lettering here and these little fat angels. And in this case, the family must have been fairly wealthy because he has a wig on the top. Very often the heads will be bald. Okay. And there's a stone over there that's a footstone that shows his carving marks on the back where he was trying out his chisel. So you're in touch with the thoughts of even another artisan of the period.
We found out that some gravestones, some tombstones were made of different stone, and that would mean that the lettering on the stone may have been worn out by the weather faster than others.
Yes, the ones facing the water are worn down. If you go to Greenwood Cemetery now, the monuments and the writings of the families or the names of the dead are worn down, and those are on the ones that are facing the water. When you have the breeze from the bay coming in, the salt water wears away the stone. But if you look on the opposite side, the stone is pretty much exactly the way it was built. It still holds its luster. Because brownstone, at one time, it was more precious than gold, but at this point, it's a soft stone which wears with the weather, and after many years of rain and acid rain and cold wind, snow and ice, these wear down. So that's why they don't use this material anymore for building.
And you have a tour that goes how often?
My tour is 7 days a week, 12 noon. It's a 3-hour tour. Everyone gets a slice of pizza and a bottle of water. It's an architectural, cultural, and historical walking tour through Brooklyn's Park Slope and Prospect Park.
It sounds good to me.